Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Vanadium is poised to play a major role in facilitating energy storage. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more about this. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Can you tell us a bit about vanadium and how it can be used to store energy?
You know, vanadium has been known in these parts for a long time. Highfeld Steel and Vanadium out at Witbank. It was developed by Anglo-American. It's now owned by the Russians, of course. Roman Abramovich, the person who owns the Chelsea Football Club, he's taken that over. But all of a sudden, we're hearing a lot more about vanadium, and it's related to energy storage. We used to associate the use of vanadium with strengthening steel as an ingredient in steel, and that is still a great use for it, and there's still going to be big demand there because there's certain codes that have changed in China which are demanding more use of vanadium in rebar, etc. But the big story is around the use of vanadium for energy storage. And I think last year we had President Obama, when he said vanadium redox fuel cell, he said that's one of the coolest things I've ever said out loud. That's what he said at a conference last year. So the Americans are looking at it because they feel that the electricity grid is the biggest supply chain without a warehouse. So, you know, you never store the electricity. It just the coal gets burnt in South Africa's case, and it continues to get burnt. And if that offtake doesn't take place, well, you know, it's gone. So storage is going to be a big thing in the future.
Now, China commissioned 3 different battery banks in December
Yes.
as part of the initial phase battery test facility, with one being for vanadium. Can you tell us about this, as well as the role that vanadium plays in this?
This is very recent. It happened in December that I think the West woke up to this. The Americans have been talking about doing quite a lot more with vanadium flow batteries to store energy, to store electricity, etc. But in the East, the Chinese, they get going on it. So they've already got 3 different test banks. And one of these test banks, I think they spent $2 billion on it, which is like small fry for these Chinese. This is just the first phase. One of them involves vanadium flow batteries, so they're going to test that. And this is giving a lot of confidence to some of the vanadium miners around the world, because they're saying that, you know, these vanadium flow batteries, they use a lot of vanadium. Because normally you have 2 different metals, a positive and a negative, but in this case the vanadium is both the positive and the negative in dilute sulfuric acid. So the story there is that China is serious about storing energy, and a lot of people thought it was just around renewables. You know, that when the wind didn't blow, well, you would have stored some of the power in a battery in a smallish wind power system that's not like the big base load power that we've got with our big power stations, and the same with the sun. You know, when the sun wasn't shining, you could still send out the electrical current because you had stored it in a battery. But the Chinese said to the people who have queried this, no. It's not just about renewable energy. We're talking about 10% of the total energy generation in China being stored. Now, you know, that ears pricked up on that, because that will give birth to an enormous industry, you know. So people are saying, well, although the vanadium price is languishing a bit now, the prospects for it look good.
So it will work similar then to a fuel cell?
Well, it's not a fuel cell as such, but you know, it's almost like a capacitor. It stores this electricity and it can dispatch it. So while, you know, say during the night, we've been doing it in South Africa. Many years ago, we built the Drakensberg pump storage scheme, which is a very big battery. What happens is that you've got the Tugela River, which has got a lot of water in. At night, when the South Africans are not turning on their lights, they're sleeping. What happens is they use that excess electricity, which is not being used, to pump the water from the Tugela River up the Drakensberg mountain. They then store it at the top of the mountain. And all of a sudden, at peak periods, when there's huge demand for electricity in South Africa, they release that water. And as it flies down the channel, it also turns the turbines, which create the electricity. So it's a very big battery. So in a way, we've had some storage in South Africa. We've realized the problem, but these hydro power facilities are expensive, and you've got to have the proper site, and they're quite elaborate. What the world is looking at now is batteries, big battery systems to actually store that power, and the vanadium flow battery seems to be top of the list in many of the areas.
Now, the vanadium demand, as you said, will also increase steel demand. What effect could this have then on the price of vanadium?
Yeah, so we've been used to this vanadium going into steel. Now, along come the Chinese, and they change their building codes, which means that rebar has to now contain a certain quantity of vanadium. So just that alone, people are saying, could lift this vanadium price, which is, I think, at the moment at about $6.50 per pound. And their projections with the expected demand from the steel side, they believe could lift the price of vanadium to about $15 a pound, so taking it back to a better height that it fell from some time ago. And that is just the steel side of it. That's not taking into account the expected demand coming from energy storage, which is on the horizon. And people are saying could demand a lot of vanadium.
So it looks like vanadium is the new thing to be in.
Well, it's proved to be green. We used to see it associated with steel, but all of a sudden, like platinum, as we've been discussing here for the fuel cell use, you have a very good environmental use for vanadium, and it's not only in stationary generation and stationary storage. If you add it to lithium, it also plays a big role in the car batteries, in these electric cars. So that is another use. So I think South Africa is blessed with a lot of these metals and minerals. I mean, America is rushing into creating a mine in Nevada, a vanadium mine. I think as part of American vanadium, they have got the Gibellini project, which is going up in Nevada. And that'll be the first vanadium mine, I think. Some of the Canadians are also looking for some vanadium. South Africa has a huge potential. We at one stage were the biggest suppliers of vanadium. And I think that, we haven't really been too excited about that metal. I think there can be some new excitement coming into it because of the fact that not only is more of it going to be used in steel, but it has this outlook for stationary sets that store electricity and also possibly driving your car. So there are a lot of uses popping up in the same way as there are uses for platinum, because platinum is also, it can generate electricity, but it can also be the engine for your car and do a lot of other things in between. And that's why the South Africans are looking to a special economic zone for platinum, because they feel that this wonder metal we have here, and although we're exporting it and doing well on the export front, some of it could be put into a special export zone here, a special economic zone for value addition, making products with it, fuel cells and auto catalysts. But perhaps they should look for, what the Americans have, a Silicon Valley. Perhaps they could call it the Platinum Valley, but it needn't just contain platinum. Perhaps you could also have vanadium there. It could be a high-tech base, that presents low carbon opportunities to the world and also solves our vexing energy problems. The world is going crazy on how to solve its energy problem, and this could be a base from which we create products that solve our energy problems, without which we can't do anything. We've got so used to the IT, and we've got so used to our computers, and everything needs to be linked to power and electricity.
Well, it sounds so exciting. Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.